Welcome back to the Win With Dice podcast, a podcast featuring members of the Win With Dice team. I'm Calvin, and I'm joined here by Ramon.
Hey guys, if this is your first time listening to the Win With Dice podcast, we talk about tabletop RPGs here, running them, playing them. Calvin and I both GM a bunch of RPGs and playing a bunch of RPGs, and we like to talk about them in a casual sense, so you get an idea of what's it like being on the other side of the screen. We also like to talk about our friends and all the games we play in, just because that's like the best way, in my opinion, to learn. Get that kind of real world on the boots on the ground experience that we like to provide here.
Yeah, we take a super casual approach to running RPGs to hopefully make it clear that it's not as difficult as you may consider it to be. It's actually, well, every week I want to say it's easy, and it's not. But, it's not hard. It's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle between, the easiest thing you've ever done in your life and the hardest thing you've ever done in your life. So whatever that means, we're here to provide that to you.
So yeah,
it's mid. It's definitely mid. That's what it is.
We've got some interesting topics we can cover this week, but before we get into all that, I want to get to the most important part of the show, the Win With Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week.
Yes, the Win With Dice Weekly GM Tip of the Week, brought to you by Ramon. Hey, how's it going, guys? I'm Ramon. Yes. Okay. So for the tip for this week, how do I start this? Okay. You are describing a narrative scene, all right? Your player is jumping across a ledge. One of the party members already made it, and it's their time to roll. They roll, and they flub the roll spectacularly. It's awesome. Everyone cringes. You laugh maniacally, and it's the best, right? But in this scenario, I think it's the best course of action to give the player options. I think it's cool to have like yes, no kind of fail states, but I also like to give the player like an option, being like, okay, you can just fall and take the ramifications of that, or you can choose to grab onto one of your friends who made it across the other side and make them roll, possibly saving you, but possibly dooming both of you. And like I think that's like pushing it back onto the player is like the idea of this tip. I think it's fun too because it gets to kind of like add kind of tension to the situation, and like even after the roll, even after the idea is like, okay, you're gonna fall, everyone kind of knows the outcome, but this is kind of like spicier, and it lets the player like add into the scene versus you just telling them or them just adding a roll to the scene. They're adding like the narrative flavor to it as well. So yeah, get your players involved, give them options from outcomes, right? Let things kind of snowball into kind of that wacky comedic violence. I like to say like D&D or tabletop RPGs are kind of known for, right? So
yeah, there's certainly game systems that like have that built in mechanically, like that sort of succeed, that sort of fail. When we talked about Marvel, actually, that was definitely something where you could have like a fantastic failure where you fail but you still get some of what you want. And I think it's interesting, like there's some certain tasks in certain cases where that can apply, and some certain tasks in some certain cases where the pass and fail makes more sense. I think giving people the option of what they want to deal with, if they just think like, well, let me just take this damage and see what happens from there, or should I put the risk on someone else?
Yeah, and then it turns that moment from like, oh, I just messed up a roll, to being like, my friend saved my ass.
Yes.
Right. And especially if you're a character who isn't very good at that skill or something like that, it lets the character who is really good at that skill kind of show off a little bit more. Or maybe you guys both just fall down the thing, and then you guys can just get mad at each other because you dragged me into this, and now the party's split up, and the GM gets to laugh more, and it's just like,
of course. And it doesn't have to be like a physical thing. It can be with whatever skill, but what it could also do is it lets you as a player have more chance to interact with the other players. So you're not just only playing with the GM. It's not everyone just like playing with the GM and then bouncing off of them and not interacting with each other. If there's a character maybe in the game that you haven't had an opportunity to interact with and you want to, if you're in a situation like that and your GM allows you to have a chance to bring someone else in because you have failed a check or something like that, depending on what the mechanics are of your game, that's a good opportunity to sort of like squeeze that in.
Yeah, just have that inter-party dynamic going.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that sort of things, just so the game feels more like a group of people on an adventure. Well, I mean, depends on what the game is, but you feel more like a group of people working together than just like playing at someone.
Yeah, playing, just, mouthing the words at somebody. Yeah. So there you go. There's your tip of the week, folks. Yeah.
Groovy. All right, well, let's get into the show. Now, just before we started, I think we'll ease in with an easy topic, because just before we started, Ramon, you were talking about getting back into GMing, and how it's been a while since you had to run a game. I was probably in the last one you ran, and I was trying to remember when it was, rather, because of grammar. Was it Pirate Campaign, maybe? I think it was Pirate Campaign.
It must have been Pirate Campaign, because it definitely wasn't Lancer. Sad times. Definitely wasn't Lancer, and it definitely wasn't Pathfinders of Inneon, right? That was like decades ago. It's probably we should bury.
It feels
that
like it. Was that?
should dig that up.
That was
I'm
like
sorry.
Pre-Pando that we last played it.
That was pre-Pando. Yeah, unfortunately, but yeah. So it must have been Pirate Campaign. Yeah. That was a long time ago, actually. I'm pretty sure that was last year, and we're almost halfway through this year. Oh boy.
Wow. In my head, last June was like a few months ago. So.
Yeah, Calvin, it's now. It was a year ago.
Super weird. And yeah, I guess we could just have a conversation about like you getting back into either Pathfinder or Lancer or whatever game, or even bringing back a previous campaign, because the Pathfinders of Inneon campaign, as you called it, it was a really open-ended West Marches kind of thing, especially because it started with you having like however many players.
Yeah, I had like 7 or something like that. It was 7 players, a little bit much to have at the table for my liking. At the same time, I know other DMs are better at managing larger parties, but I'm like, nah, man.
Yeah,
I can only focus on so many people.
And we had that big crossover game. We also had over on the USP channel, Alex and Aaron have run like crossover games over there, and they had like 11, 12 people in it. So
how do you even stop them all from yelling at each other? That's what I want to know.
It helps to have experienced people. I know Alex has a story about running a campaign or a convention game with like 12 people, because he decided to run a JLA/Avengers game, and for some reason it couldn't just be 3 and 3 on each side; it had to be 6 and 6, and I still don't get why not.
It's because there's a team of six is a right for a team, and then for a crossover you need the other team to have the equal amounts, right? So
yeah, I guess so.
12. I don't know, man. You got like the 3 main people, and then you got the 2 side people, and then you got the big guy, and like that's it.
I mean, you make a convincing argument.
This is what a superhero team is. It's just, there's like the leader, then like his lancer, and then like the smart guy, and then like the heart, and then there's like the big guy, and then there's like the actual important guy who has all the money, who owns all the stuff. He's Batman. You have Batman.
Yes. The Batman of the team. That's always an important role to fill.
Yeah, you could translate this to tabletop RPGs too, in like a party setting. There's a dude with all the money, there's the dude who gets hit, there's a dude who does all the hitting. Usually they're the same guy. There's the magic guy, there's a big brain guy, and there's a dude who steals everything. And like everybody else is just comic relief.
We could actually definitely talk about roles in a party, but we are immediately off topic about what we were going to talk about.
Sorry. Okay, yes. So you could tell how I'm dodging this question.
Oh no, not today. I'm locked on target.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's been a very long time since I ran anything, and if someone told me that I had to run a game tomorrow, I wouldn't actually bat an eye. I would just kind of settle in and probably throw some crazy ass combat at somebody and let that eat up 4 hours of our day and then call it quits. But yeah, honestly, I think with the issue is I have with having like a pause between like your game, like your hiatus, is that if you're if you're having a good game with good players and it's a good campaign, everyone keeps talking about the campaign even though you guys aren't playing, right? Which is the problem a little bit. It's not like, you know, and like the longer you wait, the more time they have to think about it and build up an expectation of what when you guys actually sit down how to play, like what actually sit down to play, what's it going to be like, right? And that is where I'm struggling a little bit, where it's like I'm a little nervous about getting my players together and being like, oh yeah, this is actually how the game is. Like, this is the game that I run and this is like my ideas, right? But you know, it might, because we haven't like connected in a long time, I think there might be like a disconnect of what the players expect to happen and what I, you know, want to happen, or like what I plan to happen, right?
Yeah, that's
and
actually
us getting back into that groove.
That's a really fair point. I didn't even realize I was probably doing that for this game and for other games. Especially getting back into playing the same characters again, if that's what you want to do. Because I mean, now that we're talking about this Inneon campaign, which maybe we should summarize a bit, because we might not have talked about it directly for a while.
So the path of the Pathfinders of Inneon, it's set in my homeroom world. So there is a little smaller continent, I guess, off to like the side of the main rest of the world, that's kind of surrounded by like these, basically a continuous wall of storms and waves and nonsense, that an explorer, a pirate, a general badass man found a pathway through and realized there's a whole landmass here. And now some very rich people have basically bankrolled a adventurers guild to go and set up a small town there, and for them to like explore. I guess it would be a Pathfinders guild. I don't know actually know what the guild's called, but like it's like a Pathfinder guild, and they're there to literally like be Pathfinders and like explore the unknown lands and go talk to centaurs and goblins and nonsense, not like actual like wild people that are living there, and like go explore old ruins and figure out why there's a giant hurricane thing blocking this giant continent, and like explore and clear it out so people can resettle there and like it's prosperous. That whole kind of let's go make America.
I didn't want to make the comparison.
Yes, but oh, yeah, but turns out goblins are dicks everywhere, so you shouldn't be so mad. There's a lot of negative connotations to colonialism, and I understand that being a person of color, and it's not like I tried to do that. I was just like, oh, it'd be cool if this happened, and then I realized, oh no, what have I done?
I mean, it's still interesting.
I wanted to give. Yep. Yeah, I know. I wanted to give the players like most of Inneon is just empty land. Actually, there's actually nothing there but a bunch of dead people, like actual ghosts and zombies and ruins, like tons of ruins, and like probably a bajillion corpses, because like you don't know what happened there and why there's a giant crazy storm there, and obviously people used to live there, and obviously maybe it was closer to like the rest of the world, but hey. That's for the players to decide and figure out. They haven't even gotten there yet because we haven't played in like 2 years.
True. I mean, if we got back to it, like, would you touch on those themes a bit? Because I know like there's a lot of like empty open space. I think even my character, her place was sort of like, well, I don't know if it was my character, but there was certainly like a ruin that we came across that I think someone has taken over. It might not have been me. It might have been a different player that someone was using as like a base now.
Yeah, it was a druid player. I forget the player's name, but or like the character's name, I should say.
Yeah. And
because it was Alex's is not your Alex.
There's I think it's a fairly common name.
Other Alex.
Yeah, the one that got me into trouble. The one that got my character into trouble, I should say.
Yeah. Well, that's why the Inneon campaign is great, because there's tons of little nuances, and because there's such a big cast of players and a big cast of NPCs, there's all these little interactions that I love to kind of like put together. But yeah, so they actually, the whole point is that I think I just got like Matt Colville's rules for building a stronghold, and I was like, I want a place where the players feel like they can put down roots. And the idea of the game itself was like, you're coming from the mainland and you're traveling like actual, you're immigrating. You're traveling vast distances over months on a boat, going through like the stormiest weather to get to this place. You're going there to start over, right? You might have baggage in the past, and that past might come and try and find you here. But basically, like, I told my players, I was like, I don't care what you play as long as, like, it's not too weird. But you have to have a reason for wanting to leave your home, and you have to try and start over. Like, that's the idea, right? It's like, I kind of wanted to, like, instead of it being like trying to mimic that, I guess, like because like I'm an immigrant to Canada, right? So I was like, this is a big part of my life. Like, I immigrated here like 20 years ago with my family. My mom immigrated us here, I should say. And it's like a big part. There's like culture shock, but there's like all this other stuff where I get to like make my life my own and do experience new things and stuff like that. So I wanted my players to like feel that like they have to leave something behind because they're trying to do something good in their lives. And I think a lot of the characters ended up being like bad people, and they're trying to help out Anchor Point, this town, this adventure guild, to do a little good.
Yeah,
so
that is what I thought was like interesting about the game, is it, as much as you're building a character, that's sort of reflected in the building of this town, which was sort of getting like, as we got into further sessions in the game, like a bunch of us had like these followers and stuff, like these people that we could pass like our own knowledge and experience and other things like that onto. It felt like we were making this place safer, in addition, because we were dealing with like all these undead menaces and whatnot that were attacking the town. I thought that's sort of what stood out to me more than the other probably potential other, I don't know, comparisons that you could make. But I was wondering if you might touch on those themes a bit, because we did have some interactions with like more of the like locals in the area, like the centaurs, the hobgoblins and stuff like that. These were people who were like living in that area, but they had their own conflicts and where they lived and everything. And
yeah,
I guess maybe this was a thing that I was thinking about that I don't know if you were thinking about as well, like what sort of relations we would have with them, because definitely the kind of game you were making, I feel like it would be one where we would develop different relationships or connections with different factions.
Yeah, that was the idea, right? So obviously like the factions were like Inneon itself, like the way to get to Inneon is now public knowledge, right? So anybody and their grandmother who wants to make the trip can just make the trip, right? Like, they have the charts. It's like they can just charter a ship and
can is a stretch. It's like a well, you can explain.
Well, yeah, yeah, it is kind of a stretch to get there. To be fair, yeah. Well, anyway, so the idea would be like slowly over time, as the players get more established, Anchor Point grows a little bit more. There's always like a new ship with some other nonsense showing up that you guys have to deal with, on top of you expanding the map and adding new points and like getting more gear and doing the whole adventuring thing, right? So eventually there's going to be more towns on the map that aren't just like centaurs and goblins and stuff that actually live there, right? Like more new communities who you guys would have to like talk to and like negotiate, and they're there for their own thing or whatever, right? And just deal with it, right? And I think that would be pretty cool, because I truly like stories where the players get to put down roots. Like they're into their character, but they're also into their character being in the world. Like they're just like, it's not like they're attached to like their stats and their gear. It's like they're attached to the character, all of their friends, all of their stuff,
like a location.
They have
as
a place
well.
to live, the location.
Yeah.
Like it's like I want players to feel like they're living like a second life almost, where it's like, if you were in trouble or you need something, you can actually call a friend in the game and they'll come and help you. That kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, again, like that's what I liked about it. Like the characters were all coming from some past they were trying to escape, and then as they were developing themselves, again, like it develops the space around them, and then it creates more space there that they can leave for other people to reside in.
Yeah, also it's good for me too because like, you know, it's West Marches, right? So like at any point if a player never shows back up into my game, well then that player just becomes an NPC, and then now there's a cool location that I didn't have to build from scratch, right? Like if you actually never play Macy again, Skyfist Tower is actually there, and in the timeline of events, I'll just start the new West Marches campaign from when it's built, right? Like it's from whatever we left off as. It's like it's there and it can't be undone. Yeah, that's kind of the fun of it, which is good. Honestly, if you're a GM who like plays maybe a couple months of the year and it takes a year off or something like that, and you know it's hard to get a schedule, this West Marches thing is great. I think it's great. Yeah.
First I was gonna say I flipping miss Macy, and I'm really glad you tricked me into playing her again. But I was also gonna say, should we talk about the concept of West Marches for a bit, because we're saying this term and I'm realizing I'm sure we've mentioned it at least once in our almost 100 episodes, but I don't know if we've mentioned it in the last dozen or so.
Yeah, so like a West Marches game is based off of a dude's campaign basically called the West Marches, and the idea is that the players are the one who generate like the goal essentially, right? The GM kind of makes a map, and there's like points of interest right all across the place, and basically there's a bunch of rumors around the place, and the players, like the GM passes this to the group of players. Like the players would be like, you know, 10-20 people, and they will assemble themselves into parties and figure out like, you know, what's the goal that those players want to do and where they want to investigate, what dungeon they want to delve, and then they tell the GM, okay, we want to go do this on this day, and then the GM can prepare that material, go on that day and do it. It's the idea is where it's like you're trying to manage a larger group of people, but also you want to get the players more invested in the story, instead of it just being like, oh, it's D&D night, I'm just going to show up and the story's just going to happen. It's like the players are immediately invested because they have to plan ahead.
It helps also with scheduling, because you don't always have to be there every week, and it doesn't always have to be the same people. It's like, well, who can make it this week, and what do you guys want to do? Here's a handful of things that are open. Here's some dangers that are around. What do you want to stick your boot into? Yeah.
I mean, it's honestly, it's a little bit like I guess Stranger Things happened, right? That's a good example of like people popping in for a campaign, like, but like the idea would just be like just a big group of people, even with multiple GMs if they're playing on the same map, right? It's just like everybody, it's just scheduling. It's mostly just a scheduling thing to get everybody together, and that's kind of what I used it for too. It was like getting 7 people together because I wanted to play with all these people. I don't want to leave anybody out. It's kind of tough, but essentially I would be like, you know, who's available at this day? Half the people would say no, so I had a party of 3 or 4 people, and that's good enough for me to run like an adventure. Yeah. And the thing is that the way I set it up is I told my players, like, after every session, no matter what, you guys have to retreat to back home or back to like a place of safety. And then after that, we'll pick up the next, whoever shows up for the next game, they can start from that starting point and then keep going on that adventure if they wanted to. But obviously, like I think we have spoken about this because, you know, we're doing this for like almost 100 episodes. But just a refresher, there was I think one of the first games, everyone a group of players tried to attempt to like basically go inside the snake temple that was being, you know, full of a bunch of kobolds, right? So they got to the snake temple, they defeated all the guards on the outside, right? But it was a little bit of like a bunch of work to get up there, and then but we had to stop playing because they didn't want to also go into the temple and get their asses handed to them, because I told them there was like tons of more kobolds in there. So then, you know, everyone retreated. The next time we played and people were going back to that site, I had more guards show up because literally these people just got raided, and they're like, oh my god, we got to post more guards.
Yeah, because I wasn't there for the original. I don't think I was there for the original attack. No. I might have come in for the other one. I know I was in there because I was part of the funnel, the epic funnel of Mason Scythe. But I remember there being like a whole bunch of snares and stuff there that we had to deal with, and there's certainly things that like people would talk about, and I was like, I don't remember that happening. Is my memory bad or no? Oh no, I wasn't there. I think there's like there was cool one more thing that I can't recall what it was, but there's like some other location like half of the group went to that we might have talked about, but I don't think Macy has been there.
Yeah, there was so one group went and investigated like a basically like a night, like a I forget what I called it, but it was like one was a ruin and full of kobolds, and the other one was this underground mausoleum that was like built into like this temple that had like a bunch of like basically just like Stonehenges that like mapped out the sun. And there was like
that might have been. I think that's the one I didn't do. Maybe I was part of the first. Maybe I was part of the first Snake Temple attempt. I don't remember now.
It's so long ago. But yeah, you know that kind of thing where it's like the players get to talk about all the cool stuff that they've done, and you know talk to like just basically be like, oh yeah, this happened on this thing that we did, and you'd be like, oh, what the heck, I wasn't even there for that. Tell me about it. And they get to tell another player in the same game all the cool stuff they did, but it was just fun.
Yeah.
It was just fun, and as a GM it was awesome that players got invested and they got to have cool stuff. I think that's where we found Star Shatter was in that temple to the sun, essentially. The temple to the moon,
big old magic. That was the sword, right?
Yeah, that's the magic sword that's like it's all black and speckled like the night sky, that like when you crit you just make another attack because the sword just becomes like just morphs into like a very cool blade. It's like doesn't actually have like a form. It's fluid, so then it just shoots out and attacks somebody else. Because that makes sense.
I have been wanting to do like a West Marches superhero thing for a while among the other superhero things I'm gonna do. Just like really inspired by like those cartoons where it's a whole big roster of heroes, so every now and then an episode just focuses on like a handful of randos who go deal with a thing for 21 minutes. I would love to do something like that because you get some really interesting combinations of characters and that sort of thing. But yeah, I guess we talked about West Marches a bit. Did you want to say anything else about like the Inneon campaign, or like you wanting to go back and playing that? Like, what do you think is the thing that you're I don't want to say like unprepared or dreading, but like what do you think is the thing you need to deal with the most?
Nothing really for the Inneon campaign, because that one I built out in a way where I can just focus on one thing at a time. Like, I think we left off as there's like an immediate threat of something happening to the town, and that's usually a good call to action to the players to like get them to deal with it, so I don't have to worry about the other stuff.
Right.
And like, because that one is so based on just like, this is the dungeon, you have to come here and deal with it, and this I can just I made a whole bunch of these smaller dungeons all over the place beforehand, so like, if there's anything that's needed, I'll just put something somewhere and then the players will just have to go there, right? And because the NPCs and stuff like that and all the plot threads, I have all that stuff written down because we built that out slowly over the course of playing it. I'm not too worried about that. The one I'm actually worried about is the pirate campaign. Because it's that one's actually the one I'm probably the most worried about, because I have this, that one everyone has like the most grandiose ideas of like what this game actually is.
Okay, we can talk about pirate campaign, we can talk about more games. Hopefully people find this entertaining, because I certainly do. Pirate campaign being the one, it wasn't necessarily a pirate campaign at first, it was just because my second character came in and had a pirate ship.
It became the focus of the game after a while, because the pirate ship, like I said before, like I love playing games with where players have like a home base and they get attached to NPCs, and everyone got really attached to lots of NPCs really fast.
I know I did.
Right, so tons of fun. I love it. And also, I don't know, we just never had like a name for the campaign until Helen showed up with her ship, and I was like, I guess it's the pirate campaign because
it is
we're on a pirate ship.
Yeah, but really, I thought that one was more because when we left that off, we were still like we wanted to go to the we wanted to go find the witch market where witches shop for stuff, because you were specifically trying to complete a certain ritual and required certain ingredients and things. I thought that was the one that was more so like, you know what's going on here.
Oh, that is the opposite.
I assumed because that seemed like the one, because again, like with the West Marches thing, like you don't have to have like a specific plot outline. It could just be like, here's some goals, here's something that the players need to deal with. They can figure out how to deal with it, and if they want to do something else. This one was a bit more like there was a thing to do and a place to go to do it.
Yeah, but the problem is that like, I think I've built up this event of going to the witches market so much to everyone's head that like, if it's not completely amazing, I'm gonna let everybody down. and like, specifically this group is like way less concerned about beating up bad guys and more concerned about meet cutes and funny moments and talking to shop owners and getting into some weird stuff. Like I'm like, I have to set up dates. There has to be like, you know, trophy moments of shopping. There's like a big festival happening, so I gotta figure out all the festival nonsense. Someone's gonna get slimed. It's like a whole thing, Calvin.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. When you have like, you know, something big is coming up on your game, and you got because I mean, I'm working on a Willy Wonka dungeon that we've been talking about for like months. So it's
right, and it's like, yeah, if that Willy Wonka dungeon isn't as good as the Willy Wonka dungeon in your player's head, like someone's gonna get let down, and like, oh, it's like the worst feeling.
Oh my gosh, I did not know that, because I just assumed like this was the one that you had the most like idea of where this was going. I didn't know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like, Inneon isn't that plot heavy. Most of Inneon's plot is like buried underneath like literal floors of dungeons. So like, if anything needs to change or whatever, I have time, because you guys are gonna be eating. Most of Inneon is beating up a lot of bad guys, getting a little bit of plot information, then going back to home base and like, you know, working on your NPCs, like talking to a bunch of NPCs, getting stuff done. There's a lot of chore stuff back at home that like is not plot relevant. While in Pirate Campaign, it's like really, really story based, and it's like interwoven story based. There's actually like a lot going on, and I try to touch on everyone's backstory a little bit, almost in like every session. There's always something. I think the only person that doesn't get any backstory stuff is like Misty, because Misty Fastfingers is just the badass chick who stabs people. It's hard to like make that kind of like, you know, oh, interesting. Other than like her dad disapproves of her, and her dad's coming for her, by the way, if Rebecca's listening. Ooh. Someone's gonna show up and be like, you gotta come home now, and that's gonna be a big thing. And she definitely disapproves of your boyfriend Ray, so. Never gotta have dad stuff happen. Like, oh my gosh, like Pirate Campaign is legitimately like the game I wish, like, I love to run and I hate to run at the same time.
That's fair. I get that. You love the experience, but the moments before that, like that dread of like, God, I hope this is good.
Yeah, because honestly, I'm blessed with like that game has like really cool players, and like their ideas are way better than mine, and you guys just like spit them out like it's nothing, and I'm like, bruh. Like,
yeah, it's always the way though. That sort of anxiety, I guess, if you want to call it, like that nervousness before a game. Like, do I have everything? Am I ready for this? Can I run this? Is this gonna be fun? Is this gonna be interesting? Are people gonna like this? And then you actually sit down to play, and it's like, oh, I'm having the time of my life because everybody wants to be here.
Yeah, right. So, you know, I'm excited to play Pirate Campaign again, and I'm excited to, like, it's weird. All this time I've never had like the ending of Pirate Campaign, but I figured it out a couple months ago, and now I just have to, you know, get there. But like, I don't know if I can do it, man.
I mean, it's gonna be this thing where you're nervous about it, and then we get to it, and then it's fun.
Yeah. But like that's the thing. I don't even know if my players are gonna care. They're gonna be like, "Well, I just want to go on a date with this hot buff man," and then it's like, why did I spend hours and hours thinking about this epic final fight with this bad ass boss with like multiple phases and like terrain and stuff like that? When all they want to do is just go on a date, have some crazy homosexual tensions with a random NPC, and then a wacky thing happens, like someone gets gooed. Like that's what they want.
I mean, Helen's fine with either, as long as she gets to kill the man who betrayed her parents. I like how Helen is like the most. I don't know. She's just kind of like along for the ride with this group at this point.
Yeah. Actually, she's like, if everyone else are actually superheroes, and Helen's just like a normal. Helen's like Hawkeye. Like
yes,
actually,
yeah. Helen is the most normal of all of them, surprisingly, for the pirate.
Yeah, the pirate with like a crew of arguably fantastical crewmen, with a cursed, family line, with a vendetta, with a magical evil pirate.
I do have cursed
and
blood,
a bunch of witches. Yeah, you have cursed blood, a la, Pirates of the Caribbean, kind of. And all this nonsense. And I would argue every time we touch upon, Helen's plot, it's like stuff is just always happening to Helen, and everybody around the table is like, this is awesome, except for Helen. Helen's like, this is horrible.
Yeah, as she's like watching a bunch of witches drink her blood, is like, this is terrible. And then we invite one on the ship. I say we, but it was like everyone except me.
Yeah, it was very funny how you own the ship, but no one listens to you. That's also like a funny plot point. And the crew always trying to get you to get paid, and you never get paid.
It's because at the end of the day, Helen's too nice. She's too nice to be a pirate. That's her big problem.
Yeah, see, and that's my problem, is that everyone's having way too much fun, and I can't disappoint any of you guys.
No, I feel like of all the campaigns I've been in, either side of the screen, that one feels like the most player-driven, so I think you'll be fine.
Good. I literally after every session, I like just ask to be like, hey, what do you guys think is gonna happen, or what do you guys want to happen? And then you guys tell me a bunch of craziness, and I pick like maybe one or two of them and be like, these are good ideas.
Okay, write that down on the napkin.
Yeah, that's a whole. Yeah, that's your secret second tip of the show, folks. Just ask your players what they want, and then just give it to them. I'm pretty sure that's actually my catchphrase.
Pretty much. I mean, like, there's definitely the sense of like you don't want to give the plot away too much, and I guess that depends on what kind of group you're playing with. But you can, if you feel comfortable doing it with your group, you can just say, and we've said this like a billion times, like just say like, well, what do you think is going to happen? What do you want to happen? What's your character's goal here? What do you want out of this game? And then you can figure out how to provide it to them, especially if they give you something like vague and non-specific. Then it's like, well, how can I adapt this to fit in here and also be interesting still? Like, you don't have to, like, just do one-to-one what they say. You can mix it up, obviously.
Yeah, right. Actually, to be fair, like, another thing, too, like, everybody just wants to date everybody, too, in Pirate Campaign, which is, like, the worst. Every time I talk to, like, my wife about the Pirate Campaign, who's in it, she's like, why hasn't Jasper made a move on me? I'm clearly vibing for him, and I'm putting out all the stuff. And I'm like, listen, Jasper's kind of nervous right now, right? He has to think about a lot of things. Right? You're like this hot elf lady who's like half naked all the time trying to give him the goods, and Jasper's like, oh man, but I have to stick here and watch the ship and be a good first mate and watch her for like my twin brother. And it's like, do I pursue this hot lady, or do I stick with my family, my found family even, right? My actual family, my found family. Like, what am I gonna do?
Yeah, Jasper has a job to do.
Exactly right. Jasper has a job to do, and he has to think about all these things before he just goes off with this random elf lady from the forest, right? Like, even though she's really hot, like Jasper has to think about it, and then I have to build that all in the witch market, because definitely that's like the place to have it happen.
I am quite excited for the witch market. I don't know what you have.
See, you are.
I will admit, I will confess.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Look, just put a bunch of wacky people and wacky items in, and
Like, I know the one thing I can do is make witches funny and scary and weird, and if that's just it for like 3 sessions, then I could probably pull it off. But I still want to have other things that I kind of want to make up a little bit for the blow up the city arc, which my wife completely tells me like, I wish you didn't blow up the city. I really wanted to go into the demon forest, and I was like, you could always just go back there. There's just demons in the city now.
I don't know. I enjoyed that. It certainly gives us a motivation to go back and deal with that big old dragon that popped out of the city and burned it to the ground.
I think I have a pet city to blow up every city that like I have. I was like, if a city is sitting here and someone's not trying to blow it up, like, is it really a city? Like, is it really important? You know, in my D&D games, like, something bad always has to be looming for like these people. I don't know why. In my head, it's always goes to that. You know, GG if Anchor Point ever gets blown up. I know that place is jacked up full of heroes, so like, it has to be something really serious, which would like maybe.
That is interesting because there's a vast difference between Anchor Point and the city whose name is written in my notebook, and I don't remember the name of it now.
Oh, it's like it's called Alinea.
Alinea. I knew it.
Yeah. Based off of the restaurant, by the way. That's what it's based off of. Oh, because I always ask my players, being like, "What's this place called?" And they always tell me stuff like Alinea, and I think my wife named it because it was like she wanted to go to the restaurant. It's like in Chicago or something. I think it's in Chicago. I don't know, but it's like a fancy Michelin star restaurant. And she's like, "Yeah, it's Alinea." Yeah,
that's a very common thing, like Lake Zelda and Smith the Dragon.
Smithorax, like the Smithsonian, because it was a statue. And I was like, that's stupid enough to be a dragon's name. Just put a couple axes in it, and it's a dragon's name.
Perfect.
Perfect, exactly. My players will love it either way. And like Falzor, that was the worst name ever. I can't believe it. I'm so bad at names.
Well, it helped that he was the worst person ever.
That's true. What actually my favorite thing that ever come out of that whole thing was Brian. We like to call her Brian. I think is one of my favorite NPCs to come out of that whole thing, because I was like, I don't know, her name's Brienne, and then we spelt it out, and everyone was like, Brian?
Yeah, because it was basically Brian with a Y.
Yeah, it was like Brian with a Y. And I was like, okay, I guess she's just Brian now.
She can be. It's a fantasy world. It's an Alineian name.
It's an Alineian name.
But yeah, like I was saying, the difference between blowing up Alinea and like even the slightest hint of a threat to Anchor Point, because we were in Alinea for at least a session or two, and we got invested in some of the people there, some of the specific people. But I don't know if we were as invested in the city as we are with Anchor Point, because with Anchor Point we're like, you know, it's you know, you want to go where everybody knows your name. That's what Anchor Point is in that campaign, in the Pathfinder of Inneon campaign.
Yeah, Loki. I definitely would. I will always plan to blow up Anchor Point.
No.
And anything that the players like, there's always the point where I'm like, I should probably threaten that with something big.
Yeah, don't do it. Then you're gonna blow up the cool potion shop halfling and the NPC that Macy calls dad all the time.
Macy's dad?
the guild master, my character Macy being the goody two shoes, is always like, that's basically her dad at this point.
Yeah, basically. Actually, there was a funny moment when you were like, "Dad," I mean, sorry, guild master. That was so good. Yeah, and like the one part love about Inneon too is that like there's just so many like senior guild members who are basically that when that guild master who's human was adventuring, right? Mm-hmm. He had these were his party members, right? And then now where he was able to become the guild master of his own guild, he was like, yo dudes, come hang out in my clubhouse, and basically hired all of them. And they have like real I guess, real world experience, quote unquote, being adventurers. So it's like they're not like retired adventurers, but they just have other duties. And it's like, you know, if you ever need something or need someone to like go beat something up, like they're fully capable of, you know, throwing hands at any moment. But it's just that like they're just busy tending to like paperwork. Like I always joke about how much paperwork the guildmaster has to do because of just like the amount of stuff that's always happening.
Yeah.
And that's why you guys are needed, because it's like, you know, they're too busy actually, you know, holding shit down at home to go out and go do this stuff. That's why you're the field team, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that one at some point though, that I keep forgetting people's names, but the librarian had come and saved us at some point when we were helping out the centaurs. Yeah,
Naya showed up.
And I definitely remember like Macy spending a whole lot of time at the library, because of course she would.
You guys are always trying to find Naya, but Naya was. I put Naya like out in the north because I was like, go north. Because there's stuff happening up there, and that's where Naya is.
She's just never around.
Like, she's never around because, you know, she's like this. To me, because she's an elf, so she's like, oh, whatever. I live for like 5,000 years or whatever. I don't care. I'm just gonna go do it myself. And so she just went out. She's like, all right, bye. Hops in her broomstick and just flies up north, where like there's all sorts of like chimeras and like griffins and like horrible things that'll just eat you. And she's like, bye, fireball, like bonk. Yeah. You know, but like, you know, she can't be everywhere, right? She's like the archmage of the whole guild, so she's mad powerful, but she's mad singular, right?
Yeah.
So it's like she can't be everywhere at once.
Yeah, I mean, but again, though, that sort of ties into the themes, or at least like what I was getting out of the campaign, in that we see this group of people who came before us, and they have all this experience and stuff, and they're in like these leadership positions, giving us advice and directing us where we need to be, and coming to save our bacon when it needs to be saved, and then we get to be that for, you know, another group of people.
Yeah, right. I mean, that would obviously happen like eventually, but like if we never play that game again, the characters don't go away. They still get to be there, right? And they just get to become a part of the background a little bit more embedded into the story, and less of like the focus, but still actively doing stuff, right?
Yeah. Like
I would probably just keep you guys as, you know, field team A, and then I'll make a field team B for any new players who want to join my campaign, and be like, all right, so these important dudes are doing important things. You could go talk to them if you want, or you can go do your own thing, become field team B. Field team B will maybe like overtake them in the spotlight because, you know, they're the active players in the campaign right now. And then maybe after a while, if that drops off, I can get more people from field team A and field team B, and maybe they put together and have a new team, and then the story will continue until you guys solve Inneon, I guess.
Maybe. I am so tempted to play a new character in that game, but I miss Macy. I don't know. I'm so torn. Well, I guess we'll see what happens if we actually end up playing it again.
That's true. And again, like Macy's always there. So like if you're gonna like stop playing, you want to play this character for a couple of levels and be like, well, this character is cool. I'm gonna, you know, place them into Skyfist Tower and go dust off Macy and bring Macy up for a spin. Then like go do that, because I'm totally fine with players playing multiple characters, as long as you like invest the same amount of love in the game as I do and into that character, and, you know, have their actual like drive for that character. Then I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to try these new classes, man. I want to try Summoner. I want to try Gunslinger. I haven't got to play him yet.
It's true. Maybe we'll get, you know, Field Team B going, and then you guys have to go fight some vampire stuff. There's a bunch of vampires showing up soon.
Ooh.
Low-key. Yeah, I was rewatching some JoJo Part 2 stuff.
I was resisting the urge to mention JoJo when I said Summoner, and here you are.
I never forget JoJo. And there's always the sexy vampires in my mind, and I'm like, I can never get away from them.
Super sexy vampires.
So anytime there's like vampires, they're always just like way too sexy and way too buff. Like, everybody's too buff.
Oh man, I gotta play my edgy Dompier rogue gunslinger or whatever. I'll get all my teen edginess.
They're gonna fight some real vampires with buff bots. They're gonna make you do push-ups and oil your body. Yes.
I have to go prepare before I can fight them.
Yeah. But yeah, those are like my concerns. Oh yeah, and like okay, before let's just, we've already been talking about all of my campaigns that I haven't run. Let's just talk about Lancer.
Sure, absolutely. The stream one.
Yeah, the stream game, because like that one is, I'm nervous about that for like a whole different reason. That one is like because it's on the stream, I want to make the stream better, right? I think that our first game is good, but it's definitely like we worked out a lot of kinks at the end of it, and I'm like, man, I want to like make the stream even more better. So then it's like I have to prepare maps. I can't just do my same thing where I just draw something on a piece of paper and be like, this is the thing that we're doing now, right?
Oh man, I miss paper.
I
miss
it's a lot easier.
That dry erase thing.
I know, just get a grid, get some dry erase markers, just get some pennies and crap, and be like, yeah, man, this is the game. But now it's like,
back.
I gotta get artwork, I gotta get, tokens, I gotta plan out the map, I gotta like make everything all visual and make it interesting for the stream. So it's just like a lot, and I have to like think about like how am I gonna present this to my players, like visually, because I'm not only presenting to my players, I'm presenting it to the audience of the stream and YouTube and stuff like that. So it's just different. It's like a lot of work.
Yeah. I'm gonna stick in some super liminal messaging here and yell out, you should use Foundry.
Yeah, it's true. Foundry's really good. If I ever get around getting a new computer and stop using my work laptop for stuff, I'm gonna use Foundry for the game and port that over from Roll20. Although Roll20 is kind of nice because I get to like mess around and do a bunch of stuff with the macros, but I'm sure that I can do that in Foundry perfectly fine.
Yeah, I'm gonna like guess without even knowing for sure that the stuff you made macros of in Roll20 already exists as a feature in Foundry.
Yeah, they do.
I'm just saying, it sells itself. But yeah, so what's So is it like just the presentation stuff that you're nervous about for the stream game?
Well, yeah, a little bit. Like it's presentation stuff and like story wise as well. Honestly, like again, it's like I'm not that great in like personally for me telling a story. Most of my games are player driven. Most of my plots are very paper thin. They're mostly just context for meet cutes and beating up bad guys. So it's like. Like it's funny. It's like the beating up bad guys and meet cutes are like the dressing on top of everyone's like super cool, awesome plot. For me, it's like the opposite. My like very paper thin, dusting of plot. It's only there to facilitate the big numbers go boom and let's try and date this hot boy. Like that's like all my games, right?
Yeah. Fair enough. I mean, yeah.
And like I think that like even speaking with all of the Lancer homebrew community and like getting all those guys like write stories, man. Like I'm like nervous to like put out something after talking to those dudes because they're just so good at writing and like making this plot, making this atmosphere, and like getting all these like ideas on paper and like getting it to like it's like I want to also kind of live up to that a little bit. But it's like, it's tough. I think all my ideas are dumb sometimes, and that's kind of one of the things with GMing. Like sometimes you just get in your own head and forget about like the players are just there to have a good time, and they're mostly concerned about making the big numbers go boom and again trying to date that hot boy. That's what they showed up for. They don't actually care too much about how granular the plot is or the twist or does this even make sense canonically, like nonsense like that.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, like no one's ever gonna call you out. Yeah. Unless you're Calvin and you take lots of notes. That's the only time you gotta make sure.
Yeah, I mean, but that's only to facilitate me knowing things when I'm supposed to know them.
It's true. You gotta use your Calvin at your table for your advantage. So you just ask Calvin and be like, "What's in your notes?" You don't ever take notes. You just ask Calvin.
I only like if people ask things, I only speak up if someone asks me directly. I try not to be like, hey, I know everything about everything. I don't want to be that guy. Even when I know the answer to something that someone is asking, I'm just like, they didn't mention my name, so I'm just gonna let this happen. There they go, they got it. Okay. I can move on. But yeah, like sorry.
There's just I think since the stream ended and we haven't come back from it, there's been so much cool Lancer stuff published, and I'm like, do I even have a good idea anymore? Like, I should just use one of theirs. There's like everyone's homebrew setting and everyone's like stuff is just so good. I'm like, maybe I'll just port my game into one of their settings and run a couple of sessions in there. That's kind of like where I'm at with it right now. It's like I kind of know what I want to do, but I also don't want to like rip people off too much. It's like I want to give them the credit. So if I'm going to dive in, maybe I'll just dive right in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's I've been kind of struggling with that too, because over on Untold Stories project, like they definitely want to play more Lancer, and I have ideas for a campaign. But part of me is also like, if this was just like a home game, I think I would just straight up use In Golden Flame and like expand on that if I had to. Depending on, because I mean, like, there's 4 chapters of it out now. If we somehow chewed through all of those before more is out, then I could expand on that and do whatever I need to do. But that's like literally what I would do, because I just really like that campaign. I really like Jerry, or any of the other settings we talked.
I was gonna say, do it for Jerry, man.
But for a stream thing, like, I feel more compelled to do my own thing, and even like watching people run like pre-written adventures. Like they always put so much into it, especially on that channel where we've gone through, where I went through a pre-written campaign and they're still in the middle of streaming run. Like, it's so much of it is the player's stories that I mean, you know, for one, it would probably be fine if I did a pre-written campaign, but at the same time, like, I want to do my own thing. I feel compelled to do my own thing. I feel compelled to like make my own setting, thoroughly unnecessarily, but.
Yeah, totally. And like, honestly, even if you do run, like, if I decided that we're gonna run Wallflower Part 1 or whatever, then like that game of Wallflower would be different from every other game of Wallflower. Like, Shaka's game of Wallflower is great, and it's like, I don't think I'd ever run a game that good, but like, it still would be like my game, right? So that's the kind of the thing. I gotta like get my butt up and just actually, you know, put together the game and tell everybody to show up on that day, like actually get this going.
Yeah, that's the way it always is.
Certain aspects of my life right now has been kind of like consuming.
I mean, yeah, like, without revealing your personal details to everybody in the world, you are very busy.
Yeah, I'm mad busy. So, you know, it'll happen when it happens. I just, you know, I feel bad for, you know, holding this on an edge and being like, you know, it'll come eventually. I want to just do it and get back into it, because, you know, I miss playing with my players. I miss running a game and being, you know, in the hot seat, versus like, you know, me being in somebody else's story. I get every time I play into a game, I'm like, man, I always get stoked to run one. So, you know, it's gonna happen. I just gotta get stuff together.
Yeah, it's always the way when you get in there, whichever side you're on, you just want to do more things. But yeah, I think if we get back to our stream game, whenever that might be, whenever things chill out for you, which I don't know when that is going to be, hopefully soon. End of the month? I don't know.
Maybe.
Maybe.
If any, yeah, maybe like August, I think. Yeah,
well, if we start playing this again in August,
yeah,
I think we'll definitely come back to it. Like, from purely the technical standpoint of streaming, I feel like it'll be better than it was before, and we already had like a really good layout and stuff, so I think it'll be better. From that aspect, at least.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I guess we only got through one topic today.
Which, that is true. We did cover like almost an hour of just talking about your game specifically and just getting back into GMing and how that will feel. We said something about roles in a party, but we never came back to it, and I think we never will.
Oh, or till maybe next time.
Yeah.
Like, go on and touch back on that point. Yeah, no, maybe that'll actually make it into a tip of the week. But yeah, it's funny. Like actually talking about this on this podcast has really galvanized me to, go make some more notes and get some more character art and plan things out a little bit more to like get it together. So hopefully, I can say I officially restarted playing these games, and Calvin's not the only one doing, session recaps.
Yeah,
I get stoked every time those dudes, the Crown of Dragons, those guys do anything. I'm actually really invested in that game. So
yeah, and I have a lot of stuff that I need to lay out for that game. I need to make sure all my orbs are in order.
Finally, get into the Draco.
Finally. Yeah, man. I definitely I definitely feel that too. When you come out of a game or just talking about them, you want to like do stuff with them. And hopefully that motivation has passed on to you, the listener. But yeah, I think that might have to be the episode for this week. Unless there's anything else you want to add, or should we roll into the outro?
No, we can roll into the outro.
All right. Well, thanks a ton for coming and hanging out and listening to us on the. I say hanging out like this is a stream. I got to turn off the. It's like there's too many outros to remember. But thanks for listening. Before we head off, we definitely want to give some shout outs to people. If you'll go down to the description of this video, you'll see a bunch of links to a bunch of awesome creators and other channels and stuff that you should definitely go check out. I do specifically want to give a shout out to the Untold Stories project, where I'm at on Mondays, usually playing in their superhero game. They've got a lot of stuff going on this month, and we'll see what falls where. There's something coming up, and I don't know the full details about it, so I'm going to be as surprised as you are when you find out. But yeah, definitely go check out that channel. I'm having a lot of fun in the Starhaven game. I think my character, I keep saying she's going to end up being a villain, and I think the next episode, we might see some things come to a head a bit, because she's very close to a goal. So we'll see how that turns out.
Nice.
But other than that, I also want to recommend you check out our gaming streams. I've been playing a whole lot of Batman. My stream schedule has been super weird, but it's been mostly Batman. Just Batman and Skyrim, so if you're interested in that.
It's like Batman, a little bit of Skyrim, and just more Batman. I think this is basically what the stream was going to eventually. It was just going to be Calvin playing Batman.
Really has. It's just the benefit of playing my favorite game of all time. So if you want to see me play through some Arkham City, definitely check out the couple of episodes that have been streamed already. Went through a bunch of boss fights last episode, so go check out that. And I think that's going to be everything that I can think of to shout out for this episode. Anything else we need to say?
Yeah. Just, go morb on all those dudes, folks. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, keep on morbing.
Keep on morbing.
Oh my gosh, I hope they release that movie a third time. I feel like they won't, but there's a small chance.
I just want I always want a movie to be made where he just says it. Just doesn't have to be his movie. It could be a team up movie or something weird like that where he just says it.
Look, they got a bunch of stuff in the pipeline. They got a Madam Web movie. They got a El Muerte movie. I forget the name of the character. Just put him in one of those.
Definitely morb he can morb all over those guys.
All right, folks. Well, we're gonna sign off with our famous catchphrase, and just remember to keep on morbing with dice. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.